My ex and his wife, my former best friend, hired me to do the catering for their son. But I told them I would accept if they paid me triple, and now their marriage is falling apart. I, who am 35 years old, am the owner of a small catering business, specialized in party food and desserts. I started it 3 years ago after my divorce, and it has been growing little by little. I do not do catering for weddings, only for birthdays, graduations, family gatherings, and other smaller events. My dream is to expand enough to open a shop instead of working from my kitchen. But that requires more capital than I currently have. Last week, I received a call that gave me a knot in my stomach. It was from Lisa, my former best friend of over 15 years. We had not spoken in 5 years, since I discovered that she had an affair with my then-husband Tanner. The betrayal came to light when I found messages on Tanner's phone that revealed that they had been seeing each other secretly for over 6 months. I immediately filed for divorce and cut both of them completely out of my life. I found out that they got married approximately a year after my divorce was finalized. I spent the last 5 years rebuilding my life, starting my business and moving forward. I have dated, but nothing serious until recently. I have been seeing David for about 8 months and things are going well. Lisa started by asking how I was, how my life was going and those things, as if we were best friends. And she had not slept with my husband behind my back. When I stayed silent, she quickly got to the point. She mentioned that she had seen my business page on the internet and wanted to hire me for her son's birthday party. Tanner's son, my ex-husband. The party would be in 3 weeks. She explained that they needed not only a cake, but a full dessert table. Cake pops, cupcakes, cookies, and other sweets. It would be a big event with many guests, including Tanner's relatives and his friends who have money. I told her I would need to check my calendar and I would reply. Then I ended the call as quickly as possible. My hands were shaking when I put down the phone. This was not the first time that Lisa had tried to contact me. About a month ago she called me suddenly, saying that she was not happy with her life and wanted to reconnect. I hung up immediately. I thought she had gotten the message, but apparently not. The business part of me started calculating immediately how much I could charge for an order of that size. It would be a substantial payment, enough to get me closer to that shop I have been saving to open, and having my work exposed at a party with wealthy guests could attract more high-paying clients. But the personal part of me felt sick, not only thinking about seeing Tanner and Lisa again but about doing catering for their son's birthday. The child who exists because they betrayed me. What makes no sense is why they want to hire me specifically. Tanner comes from a well-off family and has a well-paid job. They could easily hire the most expensive catering in the city. My business is still not well known. I mainly get clients by word of mouth and my small presence on social media. I cannot help but wonder about their motives. Is Lisa trying to show how well she is doing now? Is this a strange attempt to make peace? Or, oh, even worse, could it be some kind of trap to humiliate me or damage my reputation and my business? On the other hand, it is hard to ignore the possible benefits. I thought about what could happen if I accepted. I could limit my interaction with them. Let my assistant, my cousin Jenny, who helps me part-time, take care of most of the communication. I could deliver the products, set them up, and leave quickly. I would not have to do small talk or pretend we are all friends. But I would still have to see them. Still have to be in their house, knowing that they built their relationship on the ruins of my marriage. I would have to see the child they had together. I spent the whole weekend reflecting on this decision. I called my sister Kate to ask for advice. And she thought I should turn it down. She said, "No amount of money is worth putting yourself in that situation." My mother suggested I charge them triple my usual rate, thinking they would reject the offer. But if they accepted, at least I would be well compensated for the stress. David was surprisingly pragmatic about it. He said, "It's just business. Take their money and use it to build your future. At least you get something good out of all this and take money from those too." He offered to come with me as support if I decided to accept. I also spoke with some friends. Some thought I should accept for the business opportunity, while others were horrified by the idea and urged me to stay away from people who hurt me so deeply. I have built a good life for myself since the divorce. My business is growing steadily. I have a partner who supports me and wonderful friends. Do I want to risk my peace of mind for this opportunity? On the other hand, is it wise to turn down a lucrative job just because of personal past? Am I letting my past control my future if I reject the offer? Would accepting show that I have truly moved on? Or just reopen old wounds? I keep thinking about how I would feel seeing Lisa and Tanner celebrating their son's birthday, pretending to be a happy family, knowing that their happiness was built on my pain. But I also think about how I would feel seeing my business grow, knowing that I am using their money to fund my dreams. I have to give Lisa an answer tomorrow and I still do not know what to do. My business side says accept the job. My emotional side says run as fast as possible. I feel trapped between my past and my future. The fact that it was Lisa and not Tanner who contacted me makes me wonder if he even knows that she contacted me. Would he be as comfortable with my presence as she seems to be? Or does she have some other agenda I am not seeing? I have to decide tomorrow. And I am completely torn. This would be the biggest job I have had so far and could open more opportunities. But at what cost to my mental well-being? Update January 1st. Thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. I read every response even though I did not have time to reply to most of them. Your ideas were helpful as I struggled with this decision. After thinking it over a lot, I accepted the job. Probably many of you will think I made the wrong decision. And maybe you are right. But the opportunity was too good to pass up. From a business point of view, call me insensitive or greedy if you want, but I chose to prioritize my business goals over my emotional comfort. I should not miss out on an opportunity just because it is them. That would only give them more power over me. I took several precautions before committing. First, I asked for full payment in advance, which is my standard practice anyway. This assured me that I would not be left unpaid if they decided to cancel at the last minute, or if they were not satisfied with my work. Second, I minimized direct contact with Lisa. I had Jenny take care of most of the communication via email. When phone calls or meetings were necessary, I kept them brief and strictly professional. I documented everything in case problems arise later. There was an interesting development I did not expect. During one of our limited conversations, Lisa mentioned that hiring me was actually Tanner's idea, not hers. Apparently, one of his coworkers had used my services for a graduation party and recommended me highly, but Tanner did not realize it was my business until after he had suggested it to Lisa. This information surprised me. I still do not understand why Tanner would want to hire me. Knowing our history, part of me wonders if he feels guilty and thinks this is a way to make amends. Or maybe he really just wanted Good catering and did not think about how uncomfortable it would be. Lisa seemed uncomfortable when she told me this. Which makes me think that she was not completely on board with the idea. It is strange to think that she might be the reluctant one in this situation. I made it clear to both Jenny and Lisa that this is a one-time agreement. I will not accept any future orders from them, regardless of how this turns out. I have set firm boundaries about communication. Everything must go through email, when possible. And we would only meet in person if it were absolutely necessary to discuss order details. We had a meeting at a coffee shop to go over what they wanted. Lisa brought photos of the theme they wanted. Superheroes, and I took notes on their preferences. Tanner was not there, which was a relief. The order is really big. A large birthday cake, 4 dozen cupcakes, 6 dozen cookies, and several trays of assorted pastries. Around 50 adults and 15 children are expected at the party. Hey, I am charging them nearly triple my usual rate. Partly because it was a rush order. They only gave me 2 weeks' notice, and partly because, well, the emotional tax. I do not feel bad about it. They could have said no and contacted anyone else. I have been working on the preparations all week. I brought in my friend Amanda to help me with the baking, because it is too much work just for Jenny and me. The party is this weekend, and I am already starting to feel nervous about it. David has been incredibly supportive. He offered to accompany me to deliver and set up everything, which I gladly accepted. Having him there will help me stay centered and professional. My mother thought I was making a mistake. She called me this week to try to convince me to back out. But when I told her that I charged them triple, she said she was proud of me. My sister Kate is more worried about how it might go. She made me promise that I would call her immediately after the event. I keep telling myself that it's just a job. I'm going to deliver the food, set up the dessert table, and leave. I don't need to socialize or pretend we're all friends. I can be professionally polite for a few hours, put a large sum of money in my pocket, and move on with my life. Maybe it won't go as well as I think, but at least I'll have some extra bills to dry my tears. As I said, you can call me greedy and I don't care. People don't build businesses by doing only what they like. Many times we must sacrifice things. Other times, it has been hours of sleep to have everything ready for a party with last-minute changes. Now it will be about seeing my ex and my former best friend. A few hours of suffering and then on my way to the bank, happy. I'm also mentally preparing myself for the things I can expect to go wrong, so they won't be a surprise to me. For example, what if Tanner tries to talk to me? And what if his family, his parents? I always liked them. And facing them could be harder than facing Tanner and Lisa. What if they try to introduce me to their son? Or worse, what if they act like I'm just some random employee and not someone who is deeply involved in their lives? I have no answers for that. What surprises me is that I haven't had trouble sleeping this week. To increase your savings considerably overnight. Does those things to you? I mean, before, I used to stay up late thinking about how I was going to get the money to expand the business. Now I'm much closer. I made several lists and schedules to make sure everything will be ready on time. Jenny suggested that I send someone else to do the delivery and setup. But that seems unprofessional to me for an order of this size. Besides, I need to make connections with potential clients who will be there. Networking is crucial to grow my business. A small piece of good news, with part of the money they paid, I was able to buy a new professional mixer I had been saving for That also allowed me to cook this order much faster. So far, everything is going quite well. That terrifies me. Because when things go too well, they then fall apart. 5 years ago, when the divorce was finalized, I never imagined that I would be willing to be in the same room with Tanner and Lisa again. Yet here I am, preparing to do the catering for their son's birthday party. I'll update you after the party to tell you how it went. Either I'll have a horror story to share, or a business gamble that went extremely well. Or maybe both, it's a possibility. Update 2. The party happened. I survived. It was as uncomfortable as I expected. But there were also some surprising moments. They had rented a large event venue. David and I arrived at the place 2 hours before the party to set everything up. Jenny came with us to help. We brought everything and started setting up the dessert table, according to the plan that Lisa and I had agreed on. About half an hour after we started setting up, while I was placing the cupcakes on a multi-tiered stand, I heard a voice behind me that made me freeze. It was Tanner. He greeted me casually. I managed to say a quick hi before going back to my work. I thought that would be all, but he stayed there. Then he said something that completely surprised me. He apologized. It wasn't a full, detailed apology, but he said he was sorry for how things ended between us, and for the things he said during our divorce. Then he had the nerve to tell me I looked amazing. Better than the last time he saw me. Before I could respond, and I didn't even know what to say, he went on saying that over the years, he had thought about me, wondering what I was doing and how I was. He claimed that although he was happy in his marriage, he sometimes missed me, especially my food. He specifically mentioned the chicken soup I used to make him when he had a cold. I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so much that I had to put down the dessert tray I was holding. David noticed from the other side of the room and came over immediately, making up an excuse that he needed my help with something else. David took me to a quiet corner where I could take a few deep breaths. David asked me if I wanted to leave, but I said no. I had been paid to do a job, and I had been paid very well. So I was going to be professional and complete it professionally. After a few minutes, I went back to finish setting up the dessert table. I managed to avoid Tanner. After that, something unexpected happened. Tanner's father, Richard, saw me from across the room. Unlike Tanner, Richard was always kind to me, even during the divorce. In fact, he was the only person in Tanner's family who contacted me afterward to make sure I was okay. Richard came over and gave me a warm hug. He asked about my business and seemed genuinely pleased that it was going well. David spent several minutes catching up with me, and then he met David. Richard immediately got along with David, and they were chatting easily while I finished my work. Before leaving, Richard told me he would recommend my services to his friends and colleagues. He's a very well-connected businessman, so this could lead to valuable opportunities. At Richard's suggestion, I stayed longer than I had planned. The venue had provided lunch for all the vendors, and Richard insisted we join his table. David and I ended up staying for about an hour, during which I spoke with several guests who praised the desserts and asked for my business cards. I noticed that Lisa was watching me from across the room several times, but she never approached me. Tanner's mother also kept her distance, which was fine by me, since she had taken Lisa's side during the divorce. We left before the cake cutting. Jenny stayed behind to handle that part and pack up afterward. Before we left, Several guests asked about hiring me for their own events, and one woman wanted to talk about her daughter's sweet 16 party. When I got home, I received an email from Lisa thanking me for my work. She said all the guests loved the desserts. She also included an apology, although it was vague and could have referred to anything from the affair to something that happened at the party. Jenny told me later that after I left, she heard Lisa and Tanner arguing in a corner. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but Lisa seemed upset and Tanner seemed defensive. My friend Amanda, who knows someone who knows Lisa, told me that Lisa and Tanner's marriage is not as perfect as they want people to believe. Apparently, they argue frequently, often in public places, like restaurants or during gatherings with friends. Amanda even heard that they had a heated argument the morning of the party. I told Amanda that I didn't want to hear more gossip about them. Their relationship problems are no longer my concern, and obsessing over them won't change what happened or make me feel better. The money from this job will allow me to start looking for potential locations for my shop sooner than expected. This single event led me to 3 confirmed bookings and several promising leads, all from guests at the party. David was my unwavering support throughout the day. He stayed by my side, stepped in when needed, and knew exactly when I needed a moment to pull myself together. When we got home that night, I baked him his favorite chocolate cake as a small gesture of my appreciation. I know many of you advised me not to accept this job, but the job has given a big boost to my business. In the end, I'm proud of myself for having gone through it with my dignity intact. I proved to myself that Tanner and Lisa no longer have the power to destroy me. That said, I will not accept any more jobs from them. I know their daughter's birthday is coming up in a few months, and I suspect they might contact me again. But my answer will be a firm no. I don't think a second time could have the same price-to-benefit ratio as this one. Update 3. To give you some context, it's been a month since the party. As expected, Lisa got in touch last week about her daughter's birthday in June. This time, she called my business line directly, the personal one, instead of speaking to Jenny, as we had arranged previously. I politely declined the offer, mentioning that I already had a full calendar for that date, which wasn't entirely false. I had another smaller event scheduled. Lisa insisted, offering to pay even more than last time and suggesting they could change the date to fit my schedule. I stood firm and told her that while I appreciated her business, I would not be available for any of her future events. She seemed surprised, but didn't push further. The good news is that the network I built at her son's party has already paid off. Richard, Tanner's father, kept his word and referred me to several of his business partners. I've done catering for 2 corporate events as a result, both of which paid very well and have led to regular monthly orders for board meetings. The woman who approached me about her daughter's sweet 16 hired me for an elaborate dessert buffet that was almost twice the size of Tanner and Lisa's order. She also connected me with the event planner she works with, who has added me to her list of preferred vendors. With all this new business, I've been able to hire Amanda part-time, instead of just bringing her in for large events. Jenny now works for me almost full-time, handling bookings and communication with clients, while I focus on the creative aspects and the kitchen. The most exciting thing is that I found a small shop that would be perfect for my business. It's in a good location with good foot traffic, and the previous tenant also had a food business, So many of the necessary installations are already in place. I've made a deposit and signed a lease contract that will begin next month. David has been helping me plan the layout and arrangement of the shop. He has great ideas for branding. We're spending more time together than ever, and yesterday he suggested that we consider moving in together once the shop is up and running. As for Tanner and Lisa, I've heard through rumors that their arguments have become more frequent. Richard called me last week to ask about doing catering for an office party. And during our conversation, he mentioned that Tanner and Lisa are seeing a marriage counselor. He seemed worried about his grandchildren and asked how I was. We had a good chat and he asked me to stay in touch. Regardless of my history with his son, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on the whole experience. 5 years ago, when I discovered their affair, I thought my life was over. I lost my husband, my best friend, and many of our mutual friends who took sides or simply avoided the drama altogether. I was angry for a long time at them for betraying me and at myself for not seeing the signs earlier. Accepting that catering job was risky, but it forced me to face the past in a way I might have continued avoiding. Being in that room with them showed me how far I've come. The pain hasn't completely disappeared, but it no longer controls me. Seeing Tanner and Lisa wasn't as devastating as I feared it would be. In fact, it was almost anticlimactic. These two people who once had the power to shatter my world now seem smaller to me somehow. Their problems are no longer my problems. I used the money from their event to fund my future. A future that looks brighter than I could have imagined when I started my business 3 years ago. In a strange way, I have to thank them for that. The shop will open next month, and we're planning a launch event. I've invited everyone who has supported me along the way. Except for Tanner and Lisa, of course. Richard will receive an invitation because he's not only a connection, he's also a genuinely kind person. My business is thriving. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who supports my goals, and for the first time in years, I'm excited about what's ahead. Accepting that job was uncomfortable, but it opened up opportunities one might otherwise have missed. Sometimes the hardest decisions bring the most unexpected rewards. I wouldn't recommend catering your ex's son's birthday party as a general rule, unless you charge triple. In my case, it turned out to be the turning point I needed. Update 4. I received many messages from people asking about my business, as well as about Tanner and Lisa. The bets were that they would divorce sooner rather than later. And they've been right. My business is already up and running and better than expected. It's been a true turning point because revenue has multiplied by 5 in these months. Since I accepted that event with my ex and my former friend, I've had to hire more staff to handle the shop, as well as to be able to deliver orders to parties I can't attend myself, because I'm receiving more and more bookings. And so far I haven't found a way to be in 2 places at once. It's my cousin Jenny who handles that, since she has attended many setups with me before, and I believe she has the experience to represent the brand in the best way. So I've given her the responsibility of going with an employee to set up the tables, and she has done it excellently. I could talk all day about the business, but I don't want to bore you. That would be a good summary of the important aspects. Now, about Tanner and Lisa, they have filed for divorce. I'm still in contact with Richard, who has not only become a kind of friend, he's also advising me on business matters like dealing with the bank, managing suppliers, And other things where he has more experience than I do. He's told me that. And also said that it was about time. Because he never liked Lisa. He said she was too dull for his son. He also doesn't know how I ever became friends with someone like that. Considering I'm a warmer person. I don't know if that last part is true. But I also wonder how I could have been friends with someone like her. Another important event, although I decided to downplay it, is a message from Tanner. He explained that he and Lisa were ending their marriage and he would like to talk to me. Maybe grab a beer or a coffee. My response was that I had nothing to talk about with him and he was blocked. I don't know what the intentions of that message were. Nor do I want to guess. I can't imagine anything I would need to hear from him.